I see the same patterns across Treasury teams when they first start using Claude. These patterns lead to frustration. The frustration is not with Claude, it's with the prompt. The first mistake is asking for a report without specifying what the report needs to contain. Generate a cash position report. Claude does generate something, it's just not the thing you needed because you didn't say what the thing needed to contain. Claude can't read your mind. If you don't tell it what columns you want in the table, it will invent columns. If you don't say whether you want a summary or a detailed breakdown, it'll guess. And again, the guess is usually wrong. So what's the fix? Build out the task and format sections of your prompt first. What exactly do you want the output to contain? What structure? Once those are clear in your head, attach the data, then run the prompt. The second mistake is loading raw data with no framing. Here is our blank extract, please summarize. Claude sees a spreadsheet of numbers with no context about what those numbers mean, no information about what thresholds apply, no clue what structure the output should follow. So Claude summarizes. It picks out the biggest numbers. It flags accounts that look low by comparison to other accounts. But it doesn't know that your Astoria minimum is $100,000, or that your CFO cares about near threshold accounts, or that you need a specific table format. What's the fix? Frame before you paste. 2 sentences of context before the data changes everything. Here are the end-of-day balances for all 3 locations as of June 13th, 2023. Astoria's operating minimum is $100,000. Hell's Kitchen is $150,000. Lower Manhattan's is $200,000. Now Claude has the frame. The analysis changes. The third mistake is using follow-up prompts to fix problems that should have been solved in the original. This isn't the worst habit. Reiterating is good, as we talked about in the last section, but it slows you down. If your first prompt is well structured, your first output is usually usable. If you're spending 10 minutes prompting and reprompting, the issue is almost always in the original instruction. Again, I'm not saying targeted revisions are bad. I just said that they're useful in the last lesson. But if you're making 5 revision prompts to get 1 deliverable right, the original prompt is truly broken. The fix? Go back to the original prompt and fix the gap there. Is your task instruction too vague? Is your format too loose? Are you missing context that Claude needs? Once you fix the root prompt, you don't need so many revisions. And don't worry, this will be rougher in the beginning, but you'll get better over time. Now, the fourth mistake is not telling Claude when it's wrong. Claude will not push back on you. If it misread your data or applied the wrong threshold, it doesn't know. You have to close the loop. Example, Claude lists Astoria operating $85,000 above threshold, but Astoria's minimum is $100,000, not $200,000. Claude applied the lower Manhattan threshold by mistake. Claude doesn't know it made a mistake, you have to tell it. So tell it you listed Astoria operating at $85,000 above threshold, but the threshold is $100,000, not the lower Manhattan threshold of $200,000. Please recalculate using the correct thresholds. That's not a complaint, that's iteration. That's how your tool gets better. You're closing the loop. These aren't flaws in the people writing the prompts. You're learning, you're doing a good job. It's natural when you bring search engine habits to a different kind of tool. You're used to asking vague questions and getting useful results. It worked for search. It doesn't work for prompt-based analysis. Now, the next lesson is where you start building the habit of prompting well. You're going to build a real prompt for a real deliverable, and you're going to see how structure, specificity, and sequencing turn into usable output. Everything in this module has been how to prompt well. This lesson is where you do it. So now, for the first time, we're going to jump out of the PowerPoints and we're going to jump into demos. Now, so far, we've not talked about actually using Claude. So if you've already got Claude set up, great. But for everyone else, I'm going to walk you through step-by-step how to get Claude. Now, clearly, this is a course about Claude, so you need to be using Claude, not ChatGPT, not Copilot. We're going to specifically be going through Claude. A lot of the principles you're going to learn are transferable to other tools, but the buttons you need to click, the processes to run, they'll be specific to Claude. Now, the other thing to note is that for what we'll be doing in this course, especially in the later modules, you will need a paid plan to access features like Claude Cowork and Claude Code. Now, I have no affiliation with Anthropic. I'm just going to show you exactly what's on the website so you can make the best decision for you. So from Claude.com, we're going to come up to pricing, we're going to go to the overview, and it's going to let us look at all of the different options that Claude has available. Now, if you're an individual, there's 3 choices. The first one is the free plan. That's great for some basic prompting, that's great for testing, that gives you some good functionality from the chat standpoint, but it doesn't let you do the advanced features we're going to learn to really automate end-to-end. From there, there's the Pro subscription, which is entry level. Pro will give you every single thing you need to go through this course, and that's the one I'd recommend for starting out. Now, Claude has limits to the amount of usage you can use because compute costs money. Anthropic is paying every single time you run a prompt, and Pro has limits. For the contents of this course, you should stay well within the limits. Now, if you want to use it more, you have two options. You can add credits to let you go past your usage, or if you start spending enough money, you can just go to max, which gives you 5 times or 20 times more usage than Pro, depending on the models you're using, as well as some additional features. Now, if you're doing this for a business, I would definitely consider one of the team and enterprise programs. Team has fixed prices. This is for smaller teams. For larger enterprises, you can look at an enterprise plan and you can talk specifically to Claude and Anthropic about how that works. I'll also note on the API tab, we're going to talk about this when we get there, but we will use these API credits when we get to the last section when we work with N8N and do an end-to-end automated workflow. Don't worry about anything you see on the screen now. And just to be very clear, we talked about tokens earlier. The best model, the flagship Claude model, is only $5 per million tokens. So we're not talking about a lot of money even when we go there. And the balanced model, Sonnet, is $3 per million tokens of input. So we're not talking anything really crazy. To get through this course, you can have 1 month of a Pro subscription and then $5, $6, $7 of API usage, and that will get you through the entire course. Of course, I hope you want to keep going from there, but that's what you need to get started. Now, once you've selected and activated your plan, you'll have access to the web application, but I want to show you how to work with the desktop application. Now, the desktop application is going to be important because that's the only place we can work with Claude Cowork, and that's the best place to work with Claude Code. Now, to get Claude's desktop application, you're going to go to claude.com/download and then select the one for your platform. So you'll find an option for Mac right here, and you'll find the options for Windows right here. There's also options for enterprise deployment if you're doing it on a company computer, and there's a mobile application if you want to put the chat functionality on your iOS or Android device. There's also some really cool stuff you can do with running Cowork on your mobile device. We'll mention that when we get to that section. From there, it's a simple traditional download and install, and then you're going to get to the desktop application. Now within the desktop application, it's going to open and it's going to look a lot like any of the chat tools you've used online. The biggest difference is right up here on the top, you're going to see the 3 different functions that we'll be going through in the course. We have Claude Chat. This is also where you'll find things like projects and artifacts that we'll be talking about. So this tab is kind of the first third or half of the course. This will take you over to Claude Cowork, which we'll go through, and then this will take you over to Claude Code. Now again, we're going to be starting right over here on Claude Chat. Now to familiarize yourself with what's going on here, so you have a button right here to do a new chat. We can come to this button to go to our projects, and we'll be going through this in much more detail in the next lesson. Then you have artifacts. We'll be going through this in 2 lessons, so don't worry about it yet. And then there's customize, where you can add applications and skills to really supercharge this. We'll also be talking about that in a couple of lessons. Then you have the ability to stay organized. So projects, you can think about projects for now just like a folder where you can put multiple chats and keep them together. A lot more than that, but we'll cover that. And then you have all of your recent chats. So if I pop this open real fast, this is all of the different work that you could be doing and every chat that you've done so far. Now then we're going to come over to the actual chat window. Now it looks pretty simple from first glance, but there's actually several things going on here. First of all, you have the prompt. This is just where you type in the prompt. Come down to the plus sign. This is where you'll be able to add files or photos. This is where you can add the chat to a project as we work on that later. You can call in skills. You can call in different connections. You can actually connect this to things like Google Drive, pull files in. You can install plugins if you want to. And then you can turn on a couple of different modes. Research mode is going to do deep research and go find a lot of sources to help you answer a question. You want to have web search enabled pretty much all the time unless you really don't want to pull in external information. Web search is enabling Claude to go get the most current, most relevant information. Keep in mind that most of these models are 6 months to 9 months to 12 months behind in their training, so they don't have the freshest data built into the model, and you want to go get that. And then at a high level, you have the ability to change the style. There's normal, learning, concise, explanatory, formal. You can also create and edit your own styles or customize it. There's a few buttons down here. These will just help Claude help you build prompts. So if you're newer to this, you can click these. It will kind of tell Claude what you want to do, and it's going to walk you through step by step. Now then over here, we have the models. There's 3 levels of models, all based on literature. So the fastest model is the haiku models. Typically, you'll just want to use whatever is the highest number. You see here 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 7. Those are the versions. Haiku is the fastest, lightest, and in the future, when you're paying for tokens, cheapest. Then you have Sonnet 4.6. This is the middle model. We're going to do 90% of our work in this course in Sonnet. This is the everyday use model. It's going to spend some time on it. It's going to think about it, won't breeze over it or do it too fast, but it's not going to really spend too much time or too many tokens on it. Now, Opus, when you get into deep analytics, when you get into really heavy work, when you need to create new things or write code, Opus is the most capable one, as it says right here, for that really big, deep work. Now, on any of the models, if you want it to think more, you can check this adaptive thinking. Every additional feature you add is going to take more compute, cost more tokens, drain your plan limits, but the right tool for the right task. And then you can go down to more models. If you want to go to any of the older models, you can go to the previous Opus model. You can go to the previous Sonnet model. Those are available here too. But again, typically, you'll just want to work between these three. Haiku is going to be good for like those kind of like almost like Google search questions where you just want an answer to something. Sonnet for your regular work. Opus for the really in-depth work. And then lastly, and a really great feature, is this dictate button. You can actually talk your prompts right into Claude. I've personally found that helps me, I have a better idea of what I want and it takes a long time to type it out. You can just kind of talk and give Claude some additional context beyond what you would kind of be able to type out or think through. So you can just kind of talk to it, get you a little bit more comfortable with prompting. And typically when we talk, we tend to give a lot more context than when we're writing or typing. So now let's go ahead and get started with our prompt. Remember, we're going to go through our role, our context, our data, our task, and our format. So I'm going to go ahead and copy a prompt in, the one that we were working with as we worked through our examples earlier, and then let's break down where each part is coming. So I'm going to separate out our individual sections. We'll go through this in a moment. So first of all, our role. You are a treasury analyst for F9 Finance Coffee Shop. So now it's framing it up that this is treasury, this is finance. That kind of narrows the type of tasks it may be asked to do. It's a multi-location food and beverage business. So I need to look for locations. I need to expect things like revenue, cost of sales, labor. You prepare daily cash position briefings for the CFO. This is what I'm doing and who I'm giving it to. Then we go to the context. F9 operates 3 locations, Astoria, Hell's Kitchen, and Lower Manhattan. Each maintains 4 bank accounts. We have our operating minimums here. Each maintains 4 bank accounts, and then I've got our operating minimums. Now then we're going to go to our data. And in this case, you could paste data in, but we're actually going to go ahead and attach it. So I'm going to go to my add files. I'm going to add files. And from here, I'm going to pull in our bank data. So we'll go ahead and attach that. You'll see Claude's going to pull it in and process it. It will recognize it as a .xlsx file for Excel. So that's role, context, and data. So role, context, and data. And I know I keep saying this, I'm probably driving you crazy with how many times I'm saying this, but getting the prompting right makes everything else in AI work. So we have to get this right. So our role, so one more time, our role, our context, and our data. Then we've got our task. Identify accounts below their minimum. Flag accounts within 20% of minimum. Calculate consolidated operating balance across all locations. Structure output as a 3-line status summary with date, total position, exception count. A table with location, account balance, minimum, and status, and an exception section with 1-sentence explanations. So with all of that in, with our 5 parts, with our data attached, we'll go ahead and send that off. We're going to use the base Sonnet model because this isn't really in-depth analysis. It's kind of looking through a sheet and matching it to some thresholds. We'll send that away. And for the first time in this course, we'll let Claude do its magic. Now, it's good to watch some of the things Claude's doing as we go through here. We're going to learn a lot more about this later, so don't get overwhelmed, but you'll see Claude is running steps, and it's doing a thing here called skills. Now, we're going to learn about that, but to read the Excel file, Claude had to call a skill. So what you saw it do was first it called a skill about calling skills to see what it needed, and then it called the Excel skill. Now those are skills built into Claude, maintained by Anthropic, and later we'll learn how to do some of our own skills in a similar fashion. So now you can see that it ran 2 commands and it viewed a file saying all 3 operating checking accounts are well above their minimums. No exceptions today. Here's the full briefing. So here's the daily cash position briefing. Here's the account balance detail. And here's the exceptions. There are none. So overall, a good first start. It pretty much gave us what we wanted. So overall, a pretty good start. It gave us pretty much what we wanted. I think we can clean this up a little bit, and then we want to see what happens on the next day. Because there's 2 things you want to do. First of all, we want to clean this up and make sure it's as tight and ready to use as possible. And second, we want to make sure that it doesn't just work on one data set, that it works on multiple. So let's go ahead and tweak this. Let's go ahead and tweak this. I'm going to dictate in. I'll wait for that to come up. This is great. I want to make a few tweaks. First of all, for the account balance detail, if there's no minimums and no concerns about the status, don't include it in the table. This is about highlighting where there might possibly be issues and making sure thresholds are clear. The other thing I want is to always have an action items section, and there can be no actions, but I want it very clear what's necessary to happen. Please regenerate this day. All right, we'll stop that. We'll make sure that it got everything we wanted. This is great. And it's interesting, again, when you dictate in, it talks just like you. So I said, I wanna make a few tweaks. There we go. Other thing, action item sections. There can be no actions, but I want it very clear what's necessary to happen. Please regenerate this day. All right, we'll send that off, and we'll let it do its tweaks here. And it's coming right back. It didn't need to run the skills because it already called them. Remember, we talked about context. It's looking back across the chat. It already knows that this chat needs the Excel skill. It didn't recall it. So now we've tightened up. Here's our operating checking. There's nothing else to worry about. There's no exceptions, and there's no action items. Everything is compliant. So that's great. So now let's say we're going to pop in another day of data. Please run this analysis on this next day of bank data. All right, so there's that. We'll go ahead and attach our file. We'll add our file again. We'll come up here. We'll add our second day. So now we've adjusted the prompt, we've tightened it up, and now we're going to add a second day of data. And I have a feeling there might be an issue in here, and we want to see how it handles it. So we'll send it off. Again, things should go faster now. It does have to read the new data file, but it has the context of what it's already done, so it can go through this a lot faster. It can go right into reading it and writing the document. So here we go. There is a critical balance. Something happened, the balance is below 0, and there's 4 flagged transactions requiring review. So the Astoria account has gone negative. It's critical in a negative balance. Here's the exceptions. So we find that there was the negative balance in Astoria from a $240,000 debit to Square Hardware. Lower Manhattan operating check-in, there was an unexpected wire out, an unexpected transfer in, and there was a bank fee, a duplicate charge in Lower Manhattan. And then here's the immediate action items we want to take. It's giving us context, it's giving us all the information it has and telling us exactly what we need to do. Now that is a professional output. That's something that you could attach to an email to the CFO. Now some questions I usually get on this I want to address. First, do I have to include all 5 components of the framework every time? And the answer is for professional deliverables, yes, absolutely. Role and context set the stage for accuracy. Task and format drive quality output. Missing any of these increases the chance you'll need to revise, and that costs time. The framework costs more words up front, but it saves time and iteration. The next question, what if my first output is close but not perfect? Should I rebuild the prompt or revise? If it's close, I would revise with a targeted prompt. If it's far off, I'd rebuild the prompt. Tell Claude exactly what needs to change, like you saw me do. The narrative section is too chatty. Rewrite it in past tense analyst language. Keep everything else the same. It's much faster than rebuilding. The next question, how do I know if an output is review ready? Well, ask yourself, can the CFO read this without asking me to explain it? Can they make a decision based on what's written? If yes, it's review ready. If they need to ask questions or you need to edit it, iterate. Keep in mind, we're not shooting for the AI to do 100% of work, we're shooting for 80 to 90% with you doing the final polish. The next question, can I use this prompt with different data? Yes, and that's the point. You just saw me do it. Once the framework prompt is working, you keep it and just update the data. Day 2, day 3, day 4, same prompt, new numbers. That's how you move towards automation. Now, this is the prompt you're going to use in Module 6 when we automate this. Right now, you're building it manually. You're learning what precision looks like. Once it's dialed in, we'll connect it to an automation tool and run it every morning without you typing or clicking a button. For now, take what you just watched and build it with your own numbers. Use your own locations, your own thresholds, your own balances. Don't modify the framework, just update the data. The role stays the same. The context changes to match your entity structure. The data is your numbers. The task is the same. The format is the same. Run it, look at the output. If it's not right, do a targeted revision prompt instead of rebuilding the whole thing. And with that, you've completed Module 1. You now understand how Claude reads prompts. You know the framework that generates professional output. And you've seen the framework applied to real data. In Module 2, you're going to build a persistent Claude projects workspace so you don't have to rebuild this prompt every time, and it's ready to go as soon as you open Claude.